Man, another beautiful afternoon. So, I was initially planning on doing another 100-mile week in the Super Blast, but for a few reasons, mainly because I didn't want to ruin my family vacation ripping off 20 milers each day, I decided not to do that. So I didn't do another 20-mile double today in the Super Blast like I planned. I actually took a day of rest. We didn't hit the pool yet, but I'm really looking forward to doing that. And also, I was super underwhelmed by the shoe through about 40 miles. I think we have 37 miles on this guy. And I did bring one other shoe in my suitcase that I've been saving up. I know a few of you keen-eyed viewers saw in the Super Blast first run video that we had another shoe tucked away in the suitcase. So I'm going to go grab that one. You already know what it is from the title of this video, but instead of doing another 20-miler in these today, instead of forcing myself to eat some oatmeal miles, and you know what, it's not true oatmeal. This is like oatmeal with some local honey and peanut butter on top, but it's still oatmeal miles in the Super Blast. Has not been my favorite, has not broken in yet. So instead of forcing myself through some oatmeal miles in this guy, we're going to hopefully get some vegan sausage, just egg and cheese miles tomorrow morning in the Hyperion Elite. So let's go dig through the suitcase and find it. Oh, bang, look at that. Man, look at that thing. This is a zesty shoe. This is going to be sausage, egg, and cheese material for sure. Brooks Hyperion Elite. Woo, crispy. So the Hyperion Elite is Brooks's top tier marathon racing shoe, and holding this in my hands, it is immediately noticeable how much less foam there is. That's the key thing. It feels a lot narrower. It feels a lot, not necessarily lighter. I did pop it on the scale, and I'll throw that in here when appropriate, but it feels like there's a lot less foam, a lot narrower, a lot more minimal than some of the marathon racing shoes that have been coming through the office recently. So the last few ones we ran in were the Saucony Endorphin Pro 4, the Hoka Cielo X1. We also ran in the New Balance SC Elite V4. Yeah, they're on the 4 as well. So this guy feels narrower in hand. The foam feels a little bit firmer on the push test, and overall feels like a more streamlined racing shoe, more similar to what we'd be used to out of something like the Nike Vaporfly. And I think that's going to be one of the biggest comparisons of this shoe. It's a little bit lower stack than some of the other shoes we're seeing, and I know they still got 40 millimeters back here, but if you take a look up in the forefoot, and especially compared to what you're going to be getting out of Cielo X1 or New Balance SC Elite V4, because this is a higher drop, and I'll throw the specs right up here, you're going to get a little bit less foam in the forefoot. Now, the other thing that's setting the shoe apart is it does not use PEBA in the midsole. We have a supercritical, I believe it's an EVA and TPEE blend, but it is not a PEBA foam. It is still Brooks's DNA Flash. Where do they have it? Right here. DNA Flash, nitrogen injected. And I think they've updated this from what's in the Hyperion Max, because in that shoe, I did not love how the DNA Flash felt. It was okay, but it was just a little bit too firm. It didn't have that nice soft impact absorption that I look for out of a long distance running shoe. And so I'm hoping that this guy is a little bit more forgiving, but just look at it. Does this look like it's going to be a forgiving shoe? No, it does not. You do not put a bright orange and yellow gradient on a shoe that's designed for comfort. This is designed for speed, and from everything I've heard about the shoe, it's best for more efficient runners, lighter weight runners, maybe higher cadence runners who don't need as much protection. Now, on the other side of the spectrum, I have heard heavier runners who run with a little bit more force say they enjoy the shoe as well, because that firm foam gives them more pop and can stand up to the strength and size a little bit better than something like a squishy ZoomX foam. So this seems like a little bit of a mercurial shoe. Mercurial, or polarizing. Something that might work well for some people, might not work for others based on preference. I do tend to like a little bit of a firmer foam. Shoes like Boston 12. I didn't love the Adios Pro 3, so it'll be interesting to see where this DNA Flash foam comes in. Now, doing the old push test here, definitely on the firmer side, can confirm that, but it's also on the lighter side. I did a weigh-in of this, and because we were down here in sunny Florida, I decided to do that before we came down. I did not want to be the guy bringing multiple shoe boxes, so I did that in the office. I will throw that in now. So the right shoe of this is 232 grams, and you know what size I wear? 10 and a half. US men's. So if we compare that to the Nike Vaporfly here, it's also 10.5 US men's. Nike Vaporfly is a lot lighter. Yeah, so that's 208 grams. All right, so now we do the right shoe, and you know why we do both?
Why?
So we can check if the brand, so this brand is called Brooks, if they have good quality assurance. So this is 234.5 grams, and this guy is 232. So not bad. It's within the expected margin of error. A little bit heavier than the Vaporfly here. So decently lightweight shoe, a little bit heavier than the Vaporfly, but lighter than shoes like the Saucony Endorphin Pro 4. Very light compared to Hoka Cielo X1, but closer to the middle to light middle. That doesn't make any sense. It is in the middle compared to a lot of the other marathon racers, but towards the lighter side. That's what I was trying to say. Now, heading up to the upper, speaking of on the lighter side, this thing is one of the most minimalist uppers, if not the most minimalist upper that I've ever seen. I did a little comparison to the Nike Vaporfly when we were in the office. So again, let me throw that right here. Let's compare the uppers while we got both. Two of the lightest weight uppers in the game. All right, let's go. I'll see you guys in Florida. Well, I'm already there. I'll cut back to the main video. Boom. One thing I didn't notice was how minimal the tongue is. And you can see right here. You can see right through it. Can we see to the palm trees in the back through the upper? Yeah, that's pretty cool. So this is very lightweight, and the tongue, let's see, is not connected. No, it is not connected. So that might be a little bit of an issue with some slipping around. It is not a gusseted tongue, but you do get that little strap right here where we get the laces going through, but it's that same, I'm not sure exactly what this material is. It seems like it's kind of a knit material. It's really nice, but that same material on the tongue and on the upper. Now around the back, again, very minimal, and we're seeing a lot of brands putting these structured built up heel counters. We do not have that in the Hyperion Elite 4 back here. I can completely compress this. So if you're looking for a more minimalist racing shoe that's more similar to a racing flat, that might be the Hyperion Elite. And look at this. I have not been able to do this with any other shoe that's come through the office. This might be the new test. This is just a stack of foam and some threads on the top, which is kind of a cool thing. And in terms of padding back here, there is not much in the way of padding. We got a little bit around the heel, but it's not built up at all, really. You got a nice little pull tab back here. It's almost like a leather piece, and then you do have this little floppy thing. And this is something that they had on the Vaporfly 2, which I did not love because you don't get the best heel lockdown. This little flop thing around here, it does a good job of sometimes holding the top of the shoe to your ankle, and sometimes it doesn't. So I'm thinking this is a shoe where we're going to have to play with the lockdown a little bit, and we'll see how it fits. Brooks are on the narrower side. But in terms of the upper, man, this is extremely minimal. So if you think race shoes are getting too built up, we're getting soft in our hyper padded racing shoes, then you got the Brooks Hyperion Elite here. Now, of course, we do have the full length carbon fiber plate, and Brooks is calling this the Speed Vault. As you can see through here, Speed Vault. And they have the cool thing about this, and I don't want to use the G word, but the gimmick or the unique design feature of this Speed Vault plate is they've built it to size. They've scaled both the size of the plate and the thickness based on what size shoe you have. So I believe they designed this around Des Linden or some of their other marathon racing athletes who are much lighter, but as you get to bigger shoes, the size of the plate is going to scale. So if you think back to that video I did about how pace and why pace matters when picking a race shoe and the different variables that go into that, and bigger runners versus smaller runners, mechanics, all of that, Brooks has taken that into account by putting a plate in here that's thicker to handle bigger runners if you have a bigger foot. So in my 10.5 men's here, that means the thickness of the plate is going to be a little bit more robust compared to if you are wearing a size 9 women's or the size 7 women's, which is a pretty cool feature. And then if you see through here, it does look like the plate is pretty close to the foot. That's something we don't talk about too much. I want to do a better job of that, but the plate is right up near the foot here. And so you are going to be getting a lot of foam underneath that. So we should feel some good compression, but it also means with this firmer foam, it might be a firmer, harsher ride. I'm 100% going to be expecting that because of how close the plate is to the foot. It means we're going to be running pretty much on top of the carbon fiber with maybe only 10 millimeters of foam in some places back here. So the plate is probably going right somewhere where these letters are, so we're not going to be getting too much foam on top of the plate. I would love to see this cut in half so I can tell you exactly where the plate is going, but just know it might be a little bit of a firmer ride. I'll confirm that tomorrow. And we also do see the foam wrapping up the sides, and so while this is not the widest platform, you can see they've added a little bit of stability with this built up foam here. You can see that they've wrapped it up a little bit so that our foot is going to be sitting maybe just a quarter of an inch underneath that foam right here to hopefully lock down the foot in place. I do not anticipate this is going to be a good shoe for anybody who needs stability because of how lightweight this upper is. Looks like there's no support built in here. Now heading down to the bottom of the shoe, look at all that rubber coverage. Man, this is beautiful, especially on the forefoot here. Tons of rubber. I'm really interested to see how it does. Let's do a super unscientific grip test here. So unscientific grip test. This actually seemed very grippy. I did that earlier because I was comparing the Nova Blast and the Rebel, and this seemed a little bit grippier than both of those, which I put the Rebel in the tier 2 or 3 in my rubber tiers, and I put the Nova Blast, didn't make the tiers, it was so bad, but this should have some pretty good grip. Maybe I'll get some water on the deck here so we can test it out. Let's do that. Just kidding. Charlie's grandmother is over there. She already thinks I'm being a freak with all this shoe stuff, so I'm not going to start pouring water on her deck. But we should get some good grip back here. There's not the most coverage around the heel here, and that's an area where I have criticized some of these brands. We got lots of exposed rubber. With how much we have up here, maybe we could do a little bit better, but they have kept the shoe at a pretty light weight, so I'm not going to criticize them too much for that. And I do know that this foam is decently durable from what we've seen in the Hyperion Max. So hopefully we get a similar durability out of the Hyperion Elite here. So all right, guys, let's lace these up quickly for an initial fit and feel. Good morning. Another successful escape without waking anybody up. This time, it was not the kids that I was concerned about waking up. It's Charlie's uncle who came to visit. He's a professor at, I think, UCF, and he came to see the kids and everybody. So I gotta go grab my coffee. It's in the bathroom. I had to do a whole operation here. Alright guys, so we got the coffee, we got the bagels, and I want to grab the Hyperion Elite here out of my magic shoe bag. So there are a few things that I want to talk about with this shoe that we did not get to last night. So the first is that this has never really been considered as a legit racing shoe in the same tier as the Vaporfly, even in the same, not necessarily tier, but for the same type of runner as something like the Saucony Endorphin Pro 3, Pro 4. This hasn't been... Oh, I hear a dog over there. We got a screened in pool area here, though. We're good. There's no dogs coming through. But yeah, this hasn't been considered for many recreational runners in the same way that the Pro 4 has. Don't know how we got this dirty because we didn't run it yet. And in large part, that's due to the firmer foam feel here. So that's what I'm going to be looking for this morning. Do we get a little bit of a softer foam feel in the Hyperion Elite 4, or does it give us a little bit more balance at slower paces compared to what a lot of people report out of the Hyperion Elite 3? Now, I have not run in the Hyperion Elite 3. This will be my first run in a Brooks racing shoe. In terms of other shoes I've run from Brooks, I did Hyperion Max. That was the non-plated, or it's still the current version of the shoe, non-plated, lightweight speed training shoe. It's got a similar geometry to this here, and actually one thing I'm realizing while I'm looking at it is what I did not love about the Hyperion Max was that in the back here, it had this really aggressive cutout. Now, it doesn't look like the cutout is as bad here with the Hyperion Max, and one thing I look for with these foams is where the foam cuts off. Is it behind or in front of the heel? The Hyperion Max was in front of the heel, so as a heel striker, you'd get a braking force when you landed on the back. This, it seems that you got a mini caboose. I can't even call this a caboose compared to what some of the wagons that we see on some of these shoes these days, but you got a little bit popping out of the back here, but most of it you're landing right on top. So I think this is going to be okay for the heel striking and for landing more to the back. Of course, this is a racing shoe, and most of us are going to be closer up to the midfoot, to the forefoot. And another thing I'm noticing is we do got the little disconnected cutout that I did not love in the Speed 4 and the Nova Blast. So that's something we got to keep an eye on as well. Is there going to be that slappy feeling? As you can see, there's a little gap here, and in the Nova Blast, I don't have that in my magic bag out here. But in the Nova Blast, what that meant was you got the hitting on the back and then slapping down on the front. Same thing with the Speed 4. Most noticeable for when you're landing closer to the back of the platform, but at some paces with the midfoot landing, it was noticeable as well. All right, I got to take some bites of my breakfast here, because knowing me, yeah, it's already 5:40. Knowing me, I'm just going to be yapping, just not even eating. Blueberry bagel from Aldi. Absolute fire. We stopped at this coffee shop in Jacksonville called Social Grounds, and I was not expecting there to be a third wave coffee shop in Jacksonville with a great selection of single origin coffees, but there was. And all the proceeds, I'm not sure about all, but they donate a lot of their proceeds to helping homeless veterans. And when we passed through Jacksonville, man, the homeless population there is one of the biggest I've seen in any other cities, and it's tough. So if you go to Jacksonville, check out the Social Grounds coffee shop. One of the highlights of our 12 hours in Jacksonville. That probably wouldn't have been my first choice of a place to stay, but from Charlotte to down here in Port St. Lucie, Florida, there's really no other place to stay if you want to do the big drive on day one. And we've done the 1 day driving down here before. You go straight from Charlotte 9 hours to here, but with 3 kids and a newborn, it's a little bit of a tough sell doing 1 day. So we did the 2 days, and now we're probably going to pop back up tomorrow. Or no, what's today? Friday, yeah. We're going to pop back up tomorrow, so might be staying in Savannah or someplace different tomorrow night. Anyway, Brooks Hyperion Max was a punishing shoe for heel striking, and I did not get along with it. I pulled that out of the rotation at about 70. This guy, we're hoping it's going to be a little bit better. In terms of the other Brooks shoes that I've run in, I got the new Ghost. Again, it's not out here in my magic bag. It's in the bedroom, but the new Ghost is one of the... I can't call it underrated because it's not out yet, but I have a feeling it's going to be one of the most underrated shoes because Brooks, it's coming from Brooks. It was a very fun ride. It's got a nice pop to it. That supercritical EVA foam is an awesome foam, and so with that shoe, I'm hoping Brooks is starting to learn how to make foams. I'm not going to say starting to learn how to make good foams because they've made good shoes that runners appreciate for years, but I'm hoping that they've learned how to make foams that different runners can appreciate. And with this DNA Flash, I know in the previous generations it was almost rock solid. So with the softening up of the Brooks Ghost, I'm hoping maybe here we get a little bit of softening up. And then the last Brooks shoe that I've used is the Ghost Max. So that's a little bit taller stack than the Ghost. The Ghost Max 1 just has a normal EVA foam. Wasn't my favorite for running. It's a great shoe for walking though. So that's where I've used it, mostly walking and casual use. So I haven't had the best luck with Brooks up until recently with the Ghost 16, because I did not love the Hyperion Max, and the Ghost Max didn't immediately hit for me for running, but I love it for walking. So I'm hoping this shoe can be a first Brooks shoe that we really fall in love with. And it looks like it might be a good speed training shoe, even if I'm not gonna race a marathon in it. So Hyperion Elite, can you compete? But I'm not a rapper. Alright guys, I'm gonna finish up breakfast. I know I always say that, and then I'll probably pop the camera back on in 2 minutes and talk to you about something else about the shoe. Alright guys, so breakfast is finished. It's now 6:10, but it is completely black outside, and I did not bring my headlamp, unfortunately. So I'm gonna wait till it gets light, I think, to start running. But let's do a fit and feel test of these guys. See what I have. I also need to get my running clothes on. And the pool is super loud. I don't know if you can hear that over there. Left shoe, right shoe. By the way, I don't know if I mentioned this, but this is a sick looking shoe. The gradient is really cool. Alright guys, step into the Hyperion Elite. Let's do this thing. And man, these laces are perfect. I don't know if I talked about this yet, but these are, again, the Vaporfly 2 style laces. And this upper is so thin. And ooh. Yeah man, even on step-in, this thing puts you right up in your toes. This is going to have a really aggressive feel. I can already tell. It wants me right up on this part. You see where this bone kind of flares out? I think that's going to be the sweet spot for landing. Ooh, this is going to take a little time lacing. I got some lace bite, just lacing it up, which I never get. The upper is actually not too bad. It is a little bit on the narrow side, but you got a little bit of stretch here. The upper is giving me real Vaporfly 2 vibes. The whole shoe is giving me Vaporfly 2 vibes. I think this might be a good half marathon shoe. Just walking around a little bit, doing a little shuffle right here, a little cha-cha slide. It is very firm. There's basically no give just walking around. I can feel it under the pad of the ball of my foot. It just feels like I'm on top of solid concrete. So I was just coming from these Hoka or Lux recovery slides, which are nice and squishy. Stepping into these, it's like putting on a pair of Timbs or something. It is not a comfortable, cushy shoe, and I don't know if even the sock liner is that comfortable. It feels like I'm standing on top of cement. That's crazy. And so yesterday, I actually didn't run yesterday. It was a rest day. The day before, I ran 20 miles in the Super Blast, and then the last plated shoe I ran in was, I'm trying to think, Saucony Endorphin Pro 4 when I did the 26.2 mile long run. So that has a much softer feel than this. Even on step-in, that shoe is super comfortable. That felt like a normal, regular running shoe I could wear around town if I needed to. This feels like every bit of that top tier marathon racing shoe that it is. So I'll be interested to see how it does today out there for an hour to 90 minutes. I'm not sure if it's going to be the most comfortable option, but we'll give it a try. But as I talk about, though, there's trade-offs with everything, right? And so the trade-off here is maybe we're going to get a little bit more speed at those fast end paces. Maybe it's going to be a little bit more efficient shoe, but it's not going to be the most comfortable shoe. So in a racing shoe, it's all about what are you looking for? Are you looking at PR? Are you looking to do an all-out assault on speed and shave some time off? Or are you looking to be a little bit more comfortable? And that's why I chose the Saucony Endorphin Pro 4 for that marathon long run. I want it to be a little bit more on the comfortable side, but it depends where your fitness is too. Depends what your goals are too for the race. If you want to grind through some miles and be working close to near maximum, maybe you want a little bit more of an aggressive shoe. So on foot, this seems like it's more on the aggressive end of the spectrum. The rocker is strong, and not having a soft foam here means I'm sure it is going to roll me right up to the tip of my feet here and just pop me off. I'm going to get ready to go out, and then it's still basically pitch black, but we're just going to go for it. No headlamp. I just want to wake up before the kids, or I just want to get out of here before the kids wake up, be back for breakfast. Alright guys, so first run in the Hyperion Elite 4. I'm also texting or emailing a very special guest slash intern that we have who got some miles in the shoe before I did, because I bought it for him when he first started, and he's just been cranking away, firing off articles in the background, and this guy's an absolute beast. His name is Caden Montini, and he runs track for Yale, and he's a lot faster than I am, so I thought he would be a better person to test these shoes first. Brooks actually ended up sending these to me a few weeks ago, but I wanted to buy him these shoes first because I've heard they're great for a lot of runners who have a track background. And so he's an absolute beast. He's training to go sub 4 in the mile at Yale, and he does short distance. I'll let him introduce himself later. He's going to send us his thoughts because he has a bunch more miles in the shoe than I do. So I have no idea what he thinks about the shoe. He wrote a review, but I purposefully haven't read it and posted it yet because I didn't want his thoughts in my head before I reviewed it. So I want to probably post that review tonight on the site. I will link that here. Now that I'm saying it in the video, I got to post it tonight. So I'll post a review, link it here. And we will also get Mr. Montini's thoughts on the Hyperion Elite 4, an Ivy League track star in the flesh. We'll get his thoughts. I'll put it either before or after my thoughts so we can see how this shoe performs for those of us who are actually fast, who are really fast, the fastest among us. He's a Josh Kurt in training. So for me this morning, though, we're going to do a nice, smooth 12-miler. First 4 to 6 is probably going to be in the dark. I do not like running in the dark, man. Do not have my headlamp. I could just, there's a little cul-de-sac right there. I could just bang down this cul-de-sac and do some laps back and forth here. I've actually thought about doing that, but I'm not going to do that. The neighborhood here is, you can get about 3 miles, and you got to go out into regular Florida. So I'm going to do that. 3 miles in the neighborhood, hit the regular Florida strip. Hopefully the sun is up as I get out into the real Florida, you know? So 12 miles, we'll be back here. I'm going to do some pace pickup here and there. I'm not sure exactly. We're going to feel it out, but I want to get down to maybe marathon pace, maybe half marathon pace, but definitely marathon pace. I got a long run this weekend, so I don't want to push it too hard, but we will test these puppies. Look at that. We will test these puppies out with some real pace because that's what they're going to be good for. All right, guys, I'll see you in a little bit when I'm back. So remarkably, my camera did not die. I left it over there, got that little time-lapse action. I mean, look at this. Beautiful. We had a beautiful sunrise this morning, and now it's just a gorgeous day. But what did die, or not die, it keeps doing this self-saving thing where when it's low single digits, the watch just stops recording the run. And so that's what happened at around 10.5 miles. So we were out there somewhere in the front of the neighborhood and got probably 1.5 miles extra. But man, light, fast, nimble. This is a sick shoe for, I think anything probably under 90 minutes is where I'd take it, but fun shoe. I ended up doing 6 by 800. I got to run to the bathroom and then we can get the breakdown in. Man, what a beautiful day. Yeah. Wow. Oh no, okay, I live right up here. Yeah, thanks. The guy was asking if I was okay, just because I would look like I really need to use the bathroom. I probably look like a freak out here. Man, it is so nice to be out here on the flat terrain. I just feel so much more in control of the run. And yeah, where we live out in Charlotte, it is extremely hilly. I can get 500, 600, 700 feet of elevation gain on a 12-mile run. This is completely pancake flat, which is really nice as I'm trying to dial in my paces a little bit more as we're now about 3 weeks out from the marathon. So I was able to hold some pretty consistent effort and pace on the flats here this morning, which I am not used to. And this guy, ooh, we got a little dirty, I guess because had to go off-road a little bit. But this guy was a really fun shoe for some pace work this morning. It's got that plate, and like I said yesterday, the plate feels close to the foot, and I could feel that out there on the run. It's an interesting feeling. You get that little snap, but you also can really feel the plate. And the other interesting thing was that you could hear the plate during the beginning of the run, and you can probably hear it when I was running. It's clomp, 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 clomp. It's like a horse trotting along, but speed vault plus, man. Good job, Brooks. Good job, Nikhil. I gotta email my guy, Nikhil. I gotta email my guy, Nikhil, from Brooks, because I also think this would be a really fun shoe to have with 50 millimeters of stack here. An illegal shoe, so maybe we'll email him and see if they got anything like that in the works. All right, guys, let's get the wrap up in. All right, guys, 12 miles in the Hyperion Elite, and the sun is just starting to peek out right there. And it is making the shoe look like it is on fire. That is crazy. Guys, this was a fun, fast, light, nimble shoe, and I was concerned it was gonna feel a little bit too firm with this DNA Flash foam, but it was not too firm. This actually had the perfect amount of pop for the run this morning. It took about 90 minutes. I didn't check the exact splits, but it took about 90 minutes. I did 7 minutes at a nice aerobic pace. It had enough cushion and support for those aerobic miles. And then we popped down to around half marathon pace for the first 800s, progressed probably to around 10K or maybe even closer to 5K pace. We ended at around a 5:30 for the last 800. And this foam was great for that faster, shorter effort. It feels like a really light shoe on foot, and it reminds me a lot of the Nike Vaporfly too. Now, key difference is this foam is not as soft and compressive as that shoe, but you can feel a little bit of that compression and release as you're going along. And with the plate here being up closer to the foot, you can really feel the combination of the foam and the plate. So in some shoes like the Saucony Endorphin Pro 4, that is a super smooth shoe and it feels like the whole shoe is integrated. In other shoes like the Nike Vaporfly series, it feels more like the plate and the foam, you can feel them both doing their individual pieces. This is a shoe where you can feel the plate, you can feel the foam. It's a unique experience. It's not gonna be for everyone, especially because with these shoes where you can feel the plate, it tends to give a little bit of a harsh ride, and it's not a firm experience, but it is a shoe where I would most likely like it for under 90 minutes, under 2 hours, or the full marathon when I am extremely fit and trying to break 240 or something like that, because this is not a shoe I want to use for a marathon where I'm going to be out there struggling or even out there for 3 hours and want something more comfortable. That's where I use a shoe like the Saucony Endorphin Pro 4. Alright guys, I had to pop down here because the sun was just absolutely destroying my eyes on the hood of the car there. But what I wanted to tell you about was how this fits in across the spectrum of marathon racers that we've been trying recently. So if you think about a shoe like the Hoka Cielo X1, that's going to be all the way over here in terms of cushioning. And then if we think of a shoe like the Nike Vaporfly, that's going to be over here in terms of cushioning. So this guy is closer to the Nike Vaporfly end of the spectrum. It doesn't feel like there's the most stack underfoot, and it's definitely not a minimalist shoe. You can feel the benefit of this foam, but it's not as stacked or as supportive as a shoe like the Saucony Endorphin Pro 4 or Hoka Cielo X1 or New Balance SC Elite. Those guys are off screen over here. So this is a shoe where you're gonna need to, this is a shoe where it prioritizes you running with a nice nimble form, nice graceful form. I felt really in control of the shoe. I felt the shoe worked great for my mechanics when I was running fast, closer up to the midfoot and forefoot. And because it's not the heaviest and it's not the most foam, it's really easy to turn over the legs in it. Now, one thing I was surprised about the shoe is that it's also really easy to run my everyday running pace. So during those 6x800s, I did a few minutes or 800 at a 550 pace around there. And then I did a quarter mile or 400 at a nice recovery zone, which is an 8-minute pace. And this shoe felt just as comfortable for the 8-minute pace as it did for that fast 800. So I think this is a shoe that's going to work for a lot of pace ranges. It's really going to be about time on feet. Again, because it doesn't have the most cushioning, I wouldn't be taking this out for a 2.5 long run, given the other shoes that I have. And I likely won't be taking this out to race the marathon, although I will be doing a long run in it to see how it does perform over that distance. Now, to the outsole grip here. This was extremely impressive. I went over some pretty wet areas and it did really well. I wanted some off-road terrain. It did really well. And the other thing I was impressed about is that even though it's got a narrower platform here, one of the narrower heels we've seen across these shoes recently, it is a really stable ride. So as I've been saying recently, stability across a lot of these marathon racing shoes is pretty much table stakes, and we do have it in here. There's no real prescriptive elements, although they do wrap up the foam around the side here. It will be pretty good if you need some light support for overpronation. I don't think you'll have any issues wobbling in the shoe, especially because the foam here is not the softest. Now on the left shoe, let me grab it. I am not going to blame this on the shoe. I'm going to blame it on myself and my own instabilities and my own imbalances. So I need to work on strengthening my left calf or changing my form or something on the left side. I think I'm probably going to do that this summer because some of these shoes like the Hyperion Elite here and the Hyperion Max did it. They work my left calf a lot where it has this little cutoff. And so towards the end of the run, I was feeling that still. And again, that's why I probably wouldn't take the shoe past 90 minutes, 2 hours, just because I can feel a little bit of that imbalance getting triggered by the shoe. I also felt it in the Saucony Endorphin Pro 4. So any of these shoes that don't have the most foam extending off the back here, they can trigger that. Now in terms of the upper here, man, I had to get the flowers in the background, get a nice shot for you guys, because this is one of the best uppers that I've tried. I think my top tier uppers have been Saucony Endorphin Speed 3, Saucony Endorphin Pro 4. This guy is rivaling it because it has all the lightweight of that Nike Vaporfly upper, but a way better lockdown. It's actually pretty similar to the Nike. All right, guys, so the camera finally died as I was talking about the upper. But this upper is really similar to that Alphafly 3, except you got a little bit more room and not necessarily stretch, but it's not as stiff. It's a little bit more flexible. So upper is one of the highlights of the shoe for sure. The lockdown was great. No issues with slipping. Not a lot of padding, but I didn't feel any weirdness going on, which is awesome. It fits like a normal running shoe, which I can't say about a lot of the other racing shoes I've tried. This and the Saucony Endorphin Pro 4 are probably the most normal feeling of the racing shoes. Also the Tier Valkyrie Elite Carbon as well, but the SC Elite V4, that had a ton of foam underfoot, and the upper wasn't the most normal fitting. Vaporfly is, of course, super narrow. And then Hoka Cielo X1 felt really weird just because of the heel foam, but slipping this on felt normal and felt like a decently normal running shoe out there. But that is the one area where I'd love to see this improved or changed for the next version or a different version. Can we please get some more stack in here? And I know it's hard to add more stack, but the foam just feels a little bit thin. But compared to the Vaporfly, which is probably the closest comp to this, and Caden did write an article comparing the two, which I haven't read yet either. He just sent it over this morning, so I'll post that and link it below as well. But compared to the Vaporfly, this felt like it gave me a little bit more stability. It didn't feel like I was landing on a pinhead back here, which can happen with the Vaporfly. The whole thing just feels super narrow. So that is a nice upgrade if you are a Vaporfly runner who wants something that feels a little bit more substantial underfoot. And now this foam is not PEBA. This is Brooks's EVA and TPEE blend, supercritical EVA and TPEE. I will make sure to include that in the beginning of the video as well. Probably put it in a little note up in the left corner here, but supercritical EVA and TPEE. This is an impressive foam. And as I think about the other Brooks shoes, let me go grab the Ghost. So the other Brooks shoes that we've been rocking with recently, the Ghost here, this has their new training foam, which is DNA Loft. So you see what they did there, Loft versus the Flash. And this DNA Loft V3 is really nice. This is one of my favorite training foams that I've tested. It reminds me a lot of the supercritical EVA and the Hoka Mach 6, except we got a little bit more stability out of this guy. So I'm interested to see what they do with this DNA Loft here, but Brooks knows how to make a good foam, and these are two really good foams here. I think Brooks might be coming for the crown. New Balance last year is, I think, the hottest brand in 2023. I don't know if Brooks can shake that grandparent shoe reputation and come for the crown, but guys, these are some really good foams. The Ghost with this DNA Loft supercritical EVA, and then the Hyperion Elite with this DNA Flash V3, which has the TPEE blended in there as well. Now, because this didn't feel like the most protective shoe, I'm probably not going to race my marathon in it, and I'm not sure most recreational runners will be pulling for this for the marathon, but I am really excited because of this shoe, but what the Hyperion Max is going to be like. I'm hoping, and from remembering feeling it in my hand, it seemed like that we got a little bit more foam. I'm not quite sure about the height of it, but definitely the width of the shoe. And then it also has a plastic plate, so we'll probably have less of that feeling like we're running right on top of the plate. So from this shoe, I think the Hyperion Max 2 is going to be maybe one of the best plated trainers this year. We shall see. But Brooks certainly knows how to make some good foams, and that's evident from the shoe. So I got to do a long run test in this shoe, get some more miles in it. But from this first run, it's a nice option. I enjoyed it. Not the most protective, but very light and fast. I think lighter, efficient runners are really going to like this one. We'll have to see what Caden said about it. And I also think if you're looking for a fast 5K shoe, this might be one of the best options out there. Let's see if I can fire up my splits here for a second. Let me go charge my watch so I can do that. So overall, I'm really impressed with this shoe. This is going to be a nice speed training shoe for me any days where I want to rip off some fast pace. My watch is still on the charger, so I might not be able to get those splits out. If it charges up in time, I'll fire up the camera and go through the workout. If not, I'm going to flip it over to Caden, who can walk us through his thoughts on the Hyperion Elite. All right, guys, now we're back from family outing and lunch. So I wanted to quickly go through my splits here from Strava from this workout. So yeah, you can see the elevation gain, 16 feet. That's nice. That is not what it's like at home in Charlotte. We were in the wrong thing here. What do we want to see? Pace workout analysis. Okay, cool. Yeah, so we were extremely consistent, dialed in to this nice pace on the flat terrain here. So started off 720, and then we were banging 710, 711, 706, 709, 708. So on the flat, plus having a shoe that feels very consistent to run in. And that's the nice thing about this shoe. At those everyday training paces, so that's getting into the steady zone a little bit faster than where I normally run, but the shoe felt nice. It felt almost like a plated trainer or a daily trainer, and it didn't feel like I was fighting against the foam. That's an issue that I've been having in the Super Blast here, and I'm going to take this out for some more miles this weekend. But with this guy, it's felt like at those slower aerobic paces, and with some marathon racing shoes, it can feel like a little bit of a chore to run if you're not at race pace. That is not an issue I had with the Hyperion Elite, which was super nice. But then it did transfer or translate. What's the best way to say that? Yeah, it did change pace super smoothly. So you can see, look at this progression. I was started off at that half marathon to marathon effort and just consistently progressed it. And so let's see, first one here, we were at 6:12 and then 6:09, 5:56, 5:56, 5:49. Then we dropped the hammer a little bit on the last one, went 5:32 for the last 800. But throughout all of this, the Hyperion Elite performed really well. I'm impressed by how this could do the slower mileage nicely and then shift gears into that faster stuff and feel pretty at home there too. And so for me, I would like this closer up to that fast end range for a racer. And the other reason I brought up the Super Blast was so we could compare the cushion. But if you compare how much cushion is on the Super Blast here, man, there we go. So if you compare how much cushion is on the front of the Super Blast to the Hyperion Elite, visually, you can tell it almost looks like double here in the forefoot of the Super Blast. And I don't always love having that feeling in the forefoot where there's a lot of foam. It's less about the heel for me. It's more about the front here. And so the Hyperion Elite was almost like a sweet spot for faster daily training and for racing, where probably up to 90 minutes. I don't know if this would have enough cushion for the marathon, but definitely a sweet spot in terms of cushion. And sometimes even it doesn't show up in the specs because it's more about what you're getting right at the front here where you toe off. This felt like the perfect amount versus this guy, you just got a ton. Now, one last thing I wanted to show you, it doesn't seem like this DNA Flash V2, which by the way, they're saying is 10% softer or has 10% more energy return than the previous generation. It doesn't seem like this is going to be the most durable foam. We're already seeing some scuff and wear on the outside heel here after just one run. So if you are a heel striker, or you even have exposed foam up in the forefoot here, so this doesn't seem like it's going to be the most durable foam, but only time will tell. I'm looking forward to getting this guy up to 100 miles, likely this summer at the pace that we're getting in some new shoes and putting the miles in. So overall, I'm impressed by this new foam Brooks is doing some really cool stuff with their foams, and I'm really excited to take this out for a long run soon. All right, guys, let's hear from Caden and his thoughts on the Hyperion Elite.
Hey guys, my name's Caden. I'm a D1 distance runner and I'm training for the mile specifically right now. I'm doing around 45 miles a week, and for most of my distance runs, I'm around 6:30 to 7 flat pace, although that can change depending how I'm feeling. Now, I do a lot of like speed work and mile 3K type efforts, and for that, the Hyperion Elite 4 has been an amazing option. It really feels a lot like a track spike, but if I'm out on the pavement, I can throw this on and still be able to hit my paces pretty easily. It really lets me get up on my toes and is pretty aggressive without tearing up my calves. I will say, if I'm taking this up to like an 8-mile tempo or something like that, my legs did take a little bit of a beating, but still really enjoy the shoe for speed work, and even down to 800 pace, I thought this was a pretty good option. Now, the upper on this shoe is probably the favorite I've seen on any shoe period. Feels so much like a track spike and just locks my foot down. It's also super breathable, which I live in Florida, so a lot of those miles that I have to do here are just so hot. Really enjoy the breathability, and it's just nice, amazing upper. Also, this has been a great option if my calves are just absolutely destroyed from a previous workout. I can throw these on and still get some quality work in without destroying my legs and tearing up my calves too much. Now, although this shoe is really amazing for like that sort of work, the foam is just a little firm for me to take up to like even like a longer tempo. I know these are made for marathons, but I don't know if that's really going to get the job done. The foam is a lot better than past iterations, but it's just a bit firm, especially for a lighter runner like me. Now, also, the insole on this is weirdly slippery, I found, which isn't a bad thing, I guess, but it's just something to know. If you wear soft socks, your foot might slide around a little bit, but I mean, your mileage may vary on that. Another really good thing about this shoe is it corners pretty well, surprisingly, which I find if I'm wearing an Alpha Fly or like a big stack shoe, might get a little wobbly around corners, but this, you can take tight corners and still be pretty maneuverable. It is, however, a little bit unstable. So if you're doing slower paces, you might find yourself rolling out a lot, but if you're up on your toes, you really won't find that problem. So yeah, if you're a middle distance runner, I would highly recommend looking at this shoe. It comes in at $250, so
All right, guys, I'll appreciate you watching. I'll be back tomorrow with another video.